Hello, everyone.
Hi, everybody. So for those who don't know, my name is Roddy, and with my wife, Landy, and our son, Louis, we moved to Querétaro, Mexico in 2021, and we share our lives, as expats abroad, and we also talk about financial freedom through real estate. And today we have a special guest with us today. She is an estate planning attorney, which means she helps with wills and trusts. Her name is LIN Wang, and I'll let her introduce herself a little bit more. Lin?
Thank you very much, Rod. And nice to meet you, everyone. I am attorney LIN Wang. Just like what Rod has introduced me, I am an attorney in trusts and wills, like estate planning. And I work for my law firm, Geerdes Associates. Our law firm is a national law firm, so we can work for clients from 21 states. And I'm very happy to help with the clients to build up their own estate planning plans, and very happy to have the chance to introduce you to the world of the estate planning. Very excited to start. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yes. We're glad to have you. I think this is a very important area of discussion that most families need to have. I think sometimes families may feel the need to put them off, but this is, in our opinion, and I would think yours too, one of the most important conversations a family needs to have to kind of plan out their future and, for generations.
That's true.
So I guess, our first question would be, as people are getting older, they tend to acquire more assets. Should they consider any particular legal documents to protect themselves and their families?
Yes, actually, when we get older, of course, when we are totally healthy, when we are happy, we don't have to think about the asset protection, right? Because we will be the guardians of the assets. But the issue is, what if we become incompetent? Like Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
It is a common issue for a lot of families and people.
Right.
And also, what if we pass away finally? When we go to the heaven, when we are with the God, what should we do with the assets, And this is the question we have to face. As a person with Chinese background, I know it is so hard to talk about it sometimes, but we have to at some point of our life. And if we do not, when we are incompetent, our families cannot take over the assets directly. I know a woman whose husband is suffering from the stroke and becomes, incompetent in the nursing home, stuck in the bed. And the woman wants to sell the houses jointly owned with the husband to support the family, because the husband is the breadwinner before. And the wife is only a housewife without, extra resources. But unfortunately, she just found out she couldn't sell anything because she owns everything jointly with the husband, and the husband cannot sign anything right now. And without the approval from the husband before, like the financial medical power of attorney, she cannot make any decision for the husband. And also, what if we pass away? I think like a lot of people who can speak English very well understand the probate court process.
Right.
Yeah, like if we pass away, instead of distributing the assets to our families, our loved ones directly and automatically, the court probate will be involved. And it wants to review everything to make sure our assets are distributed correctly and appropriately. Listen, okay, I am protecting you, but the result is that our families need to wait for 1 to 2 years or even 3 to 5 years before getting our assets. And they need to take a lot of money to finish the whole process. Sometimes it even takes 5 to 50% of our estates. And we are required to disclose our information to the public for public review before our families can get the assets. That is a waste of time, energy, money, and privacy. So if we don't want to go through all of the difficulties, I really strongly recommend every one of us with assets to have the financial power of attorney, medical power of attorney, and trust to make sure if we are incompetent or if we pass away, our families, our loved ones, our trusted ones will have the hands on the assets instead of the uncle son.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is that's very good points and good information. And as you mentioned, I believe most people are familiar with wills, maybe POAs as well, which is the power of attorney. Maybe you can go into a little bit more detail on that. And I know the other thing you mentioned are trusts, and that's something that we have just kind of signed up. Actually, we're using you, and
Thank you.
so maybe get into a little bit more detail about what a trust is and how it can help people. Can you explain the difference between a will and a trust?
Absolutely. A lot of us have thought about wills, but what is a trust? That is kind of like a brand new asset, like concept in some of us. But actually, the main purpose for the trusts and will is almost the same or similar. It is to make sure if we pass away, our assets will go to the families or friends we choose instead of the government choose. However, a trust and a will are quite different when it comes to the process. First, if we have a will, when we pass away, we need to go through the probate. Like a lot of us think, okay, my family is very simple. My assets are simple. If I pass away, my assets will go to my children, and I only have two children. They are good kids. They have happy life. They should get everything from me. However, the government doesn't know about us.
Right.
The government is not our friend. It is not our family. It doesn't know anything about us. Even we have lived in this land, in this nation for the whole life. So it wants to make sure if we pass away, we will be protected and the will is authentic and correct and legal. What if the will is a fake will? What if we still have someone who we should have taken care of? Like, for example, the minor children. What if I don't leave anything in the will for the minor children? The minor children will become public checks. And that is the last thing the government wants to say, which will happen. So if we pass away and only a will, the court wants to have a second opinion on that. So it requires us to go through the probate court process to make sure everything is correct, everything is authentic, everything looks good before our families can inherit the assets according to the will. And please remember, there is no guarantee that the government will approve it. Perhaps the government will just say, oh, I don't like this will, it looks like a fake. And if they don't approve, our will is invalid and we cannot do anything with it. Basically, it is a paper, which is just means nothing.
Right.
Yeah, and also, like second, but when we have a trust, like we already record the document with the government when we are still alive. So there is no second guess space for the government after we pass away. They cannot use it as an excuse to look through everything in our whole life. So it can save us time, money, energy, and privacy. And also second, for the will, it only works when we pass away. It doesn't work if we are incompetent. But the trust is to trust the people we trust to handle the assets if we are incompetent and if we pass away. So it already works when we're incompetent. Like in the case of the wife and the incompetent husband I just mentioned, if the husband already gave a trust to the wife when he was still competent, the wife didn't have to go through all of this actually.
Right.
Yeah, so that is how the trust can work while the will cannot. And the third, the trust also has some functions even when we pass away totally. Like I put my assets in the safe box of the will, like I put the assets under the name of the will and if, in the trust, in the safe box of the trust. And if I pass away, my rules still survive. So I can ask my children to be protected from their creditors, from their divorce, from their disability benefits. So the money will be kept in the families and the bloodline families instead of the outsiders,
Right.
perhaps the in-laws.
Right.
And also we can control how they use the money. And people can also use irrevocable trust to avoid the estate tax or to protect themselves, the grantors, the creators of the trust, from their creditors. So in this way, we can make sure our families will be happy with our assets and they will be protected and safe. So basically, when we have a trust, it helps us to avoid the probate. Our assets are in the hands of our families and friends when we are incompetent, and our assets will be protected against the outsiders and the predators, which the will cannot help.
Right. So just to make clear on the protection, you said it helps to avoid creditors or even like if your children were to get a divorce. So what you mean is that once they have the money and it's in your bloodline, that it stays there, right? So like if your son or daughter or grandchildren have any debts that and they owe to anybody, those companies can't come and get that money.
Correct, because this is my money.
Right.
And
right.
I can control how and who will use the money.
Right. And I think, and you said the same thing for divorce, right? If your children get married and you've passed away and years down the line they get a divorce, that spouse can't go after that money.
Correct. For example, like if my parents just gives me the money without the trust, and after they pass away, hopefully it will happen like after hundreds of thousands of years, and then I get the money, and then I have a bad car accident, and I have creditors. The creditors ask me, okay, Lin, give me the money from your parents. And I will say, I'm sorry, I am not the owner to the money. The owner to the money is my parents' trust. And
Right.
they told me in the trust, in the rules, you cannot get the money as my creditors. And I have to respect their rules. If you're not happy, please go to the court, but you will still get the same answers. And
Right.
I can say the same thing to my ex-husband. Hopefully, I will never have an ex-husband.
Right. Well, that's good. I think that's one of the important things. I think that's one of the things we learned from you. And one of the reasons that we went, with these trusts was because, for the protection it offers our son down the line. Once we're gone, who knows what will happen. But again, at least we have peace of mind now, knowing that he will always be protected and those assets will always be in our name, which he has power to. So that's a great point or a great aspect of the trust.
That's true. And I can tell you a secret. Most people don't like their in-laws who divorce with their children. And that does make you different.
I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never heard that from anyone.
I guess so. I bet it.
Well, that's great. And so I think when we were answering the first question, I just want to make sure we're also clear on this. You said if you go to probate court, usually there's a rough percentage that the court can take, for their fees. What was that percentage that they can normally take from the assets?
5 to 15% of the estates.
5 to 15% of your estate, right? Oh, wow. So yeah, that's a good chunk of money that you could save by avoiding probate.
True. That's true. And there is a range over there. The reason is because everyone's situation is different. For example, if everyone in my home loves each other, everything is so peaceful, and if I pass away, they will just get their money peacefully. Perhaps it's only 5%.
Right.
But what if the family argue with each other fiercely? Like I have encountered families, like the deceased person left his current spouse and his children from the prior relationship. And they argue with each other so fiercely. And they want to go to the court once and once again. So
right.
it will increase everything, the probate court fee, the attorney fee, and it can be 15% of the estates or even more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I mean, so again, that's one of the important reasons. Now, another thing, when you talk about trust and these assets, and then of course, when you're talking about percentages, 5 to 15%, is there maybe a minimum amount of assets that somebody should consider, whether it may be worth having a trust or not?
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, like we can think about what will happen if we pass away without a trust. We go to the probate court, right?
Right.
And it will cost us 5 to 15% of the assets, of the estates. So let's say, how much is my estate, right? We can be optimistic. Everyone in our family is good person who will not fight with each other, and it will only cost 5% of my money. So if I go to the court and if I have $60,000, that is a little money actually. If I multiply $60,000 by 5%, that will be $3,000. And we can use calculators because I know I'm good at calculation as a Chinese person. Not everyone like that, but you can use your calculator. Basically, if you have $60,000, multiply it by 5%, that will be $3,000. And for trust in my law firm, like our trust is worth $3,000 or more. It depends on what kind of trust you want to have.
Sure.
So it means if you have more than $60,000, you should think about trusts to avoid the probate. And please remember, it is only about money. We haven't thought about the cost related to the waiting time, related to the energy, related to the risk of disclosure of our privacy.
Right. Which I think that's an important thing that people should consider sometimes, right? Sometimes we only consider the money, but again, also the time and effort it takes, and the cost or the toll that takes on our family once we're gone. So I think that's also important to consider. Absolutely.
Absolutely, yes.
And I think we covered most of this, but like I said, so in addition to avoiding just the cost of probates, I know we mentioned a few other issues or benefits, but are there any other last benefits that a person can get by having the trust?
Yes, like we have mentioned, the trust can help us to avoid the tedious and annoying probate court process. It can help us to protect our beneficiaries from their in-laws, from their creditors. It can help us to avoid our own creditors or even avoid the estate tax. Like some people will use the irrevocable trust to avoid the estate tax. Like if I'm so rich, if I have more than $12.06 million, because that is the threshold for the estate tax so far. And in the future to 2026, it can be $5 million per person, according to the current tax law, if it is not changed. Okay. So more people will be subject to a higher estate tax. If we don't want to pay that, trust can help us with that. And also some people, they have a higher risky professions, which can make them more vulnerable to the suits. For example, an attorney, unfortunately, we make big money, but sometimes we have big risk. So we can use the assets in the irrevocable trust to avoid creditors too. And also, I will suggest everyone to take this trust as a chance to organize your assets. Because we always take it for granted that, okay, if I pass away, my family know where my assets are. Unfortunately, that is not the truth.
Yeah.
Because, for example, do you know where your parents have the money? I don't know.
Right.
Never told me that.
Right. Some idea, but again, there could be things hidden that we don't know about. Right.
Yeah, perhaps they have their own private pocket money. You never know, right?
Right.
So for example, if I pass away, I don't have the confidence that my parents know where my assets are. And even worse, because my parents don't want to talk about that, don't want to talk about what will happen if I pass away, as traditional Asian parents, So I always think I should write something. And I can leave the documents in their hands. I don't have to have a very deep discussion with them, which will perhaps make them sad, but at least they know where my assets are if I pass away. So they know where to locate the assets and recover the assets. So the trust is a good way for us to organize everything and leave the documents to our families so they know what they should do next if the worst case happens and we pass away. They know where to go.
Right. And all good points, so, I think that's definitely good to know. I think this is something that we learned about as well. And Landy was the one that kind of started this discussion. And, the more we learned about it, the more we understood it and appreciated it, so I think this is an important topic that people do need to talk about, with their significant others or just even themselves, depending on their situation. But I know we're just kind of scratching the surface. I know there's a lot more detail. I know, for us personally, when we talked to you, you had the checklist we went through, and you're right. It's a way to organize all our assets. When you talked to us the first time, and between our first and second meeting, you said, okay, get this, this, and this, and we're okay. And we had never really crossed our mind, as to how well this can organize everything. So I think that's a good thing for people to understand and know about. So as I mentioned, we're just scratching the surface. I think, is there a way that people can contact you if they want to get any information? I know we'll leave your contact information as well on the bottom, but how else can people reach you?
Yeah, I think like if Rod, you would like to, would you please like put my contact information, like my phone number, my email address in the description column of the YouTube video. And also like I have my own YouTube video too to talk about trust and wills. Most of them are in Mandarin, but some of them are in English too. And also I have TikTok too. If you want to turn LIN WANG in TikTok, like all of the videos on TikTok are in English.
Oh, perfect.
So I can put my link over there. So like if people are interested in, like they can watch my videos. And also to be honest, like I really learn a lot from like your video channel with Landy. That's really a very happy family. And I have learned a lot about, the investment from your YouTube videos. And hopefully that like we can see more and more the high quality videos from your channel.
Well, thank you. We try. So, we'll definitely put all your information on the bottom, your TikTok, YouTube, so people can check it out. Again, this is just a way to start the conversation. There's going to be a lot more questions people should ask and can get the answers to when they contact you. So we thank you for your time, Lynn. And again, everybody out there, we hope to see you soon. Contact Lynn if you have any questions, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Rod, and bye. Thank you, everyone.